Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey guys, so I'm very excited for today. I have a very cool guest with me. I have Shahrzad Rafati, and she is the founder and CEO of RHEI, a technology company that builds AI to amplify human creativity, scale audiences, and enhance impact. Shahrzad has driven RHEI to be a groundbreaking leader in the tech space, pioneering Made as the first emotionally intelligent platform for human creativity. RHEI is a leading global powerhouse, reaching over 600 million unique viewers every month in over 150 countries. In addition to her success with RHEI and her exemplary contributions to G20 and G7, Shahrzad supports a number of influential boards and associations spanning national and international investment groups, leading media and technology businesses, global leaders in design and architecture, and not-for-profits. A selection of these includes as vice chairperson for Invest in Canada and as a board member for Hootsuite Media Inc. and BRK Ingalls Group Big. So welcome. It is so good to have you. I'm very looking forward to this call.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm very much looking forward to a great conversation. I listen to your podcast. It's definitely very, very engaging and fun. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about, and you are great at sharing, so this will be fun. So tell us a little bit more about RHEI. Like, I know we got a breakdown of what it is in your bio, but really, I'd love for listeners to know what we're talking about today, how it's practically applicable in the real world.
Of course, RHEI really, we're a technology company, and our goal is to really help elevate human creativity by, working with IP owners, whether if it's a large media company or an individual content creator or musician, to help them with their creative workflow. Because we live in a day and age where being a musician, being a content creator, or even at the larger scale, if you're a large media company or a record label or distributor, you have to do so many different things. You have to wear so many different hats. As a creator, you have to be a designer, a distributor, a content manager, a rights manager, a community manager. So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to get the creatives to focus on the creative. So if you're a content creator, focus on that creation. If you're an artist, focus on creating music, and we handle the rest. So we basically made as our agentic platform for creativity. It's our creative operating system that we built that very much so acts as that creative dream team in working with obviously content creators and media companies.
Awesome. And I'm curious as well, because how did you discover that gap in the market that made you think like this is the solution RHEI made these dynamics?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've been in the creator economy. We were one of the pioneers in creator economy. We started the business, a few years ago, and it was early days, with creator economy, where it was this incredible, like, fascination that I personally had about, growing up in Iran, where content was rationed, you had access to limited amount of content and programming, and now all of a sudden you move to North America, to the West, and the content is unlimited. So, and it was just more about how can you actually empower storytellers to be able to tell their stories, share their stories, and to be able to give them the solutions and the tools that they need. And I'm deeply passionate about technology. So it was that intersection of storytelling and technology that led me to want to actually start RHEI. And as a team, I have an incredible team and a very diverse team. And we always try to disrupt ourselves, with respect to, RHEI. We initially had a toolkit and a number of services where we were providing to content creators and musicians and larger, IP owners to be able to help them build fandom and grow fandom. And then 3 years ago, we saw this as a great opportunity with generative AI to be able to disrupt ourselves in building Made. So you go from the old SaaS model where you're giving people a toolkit to now the agentic era where you actually can focus on the outcome and truly delegate tasks to specific agents that are very much so personalize, know everything about you, know what you're passionate about, what your creative DNA is about, so we can actually build solutions that are very much so relevant, outcome based for our customers.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I love the personal connection that you have with the brand as well and the mission behind it. It's like you're just helping people find their voice and seeing, where you were growing up in Toronto. It's like they didn't have the voice to the same degree. So it was very cool. It's lovely to see it intertwined in that way. It's really fun.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's how you start. The reason why you started, obviously, you develop certain passions is because because of your personal experiences in life. But I also want to give credit to my incredible team that I work with, because we look at solving problems together. So we are very much so always look at pivoting, listening to our customers, understanding the industry, because I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, you fall in love with your ideas and you feel like, oh, I got to really figure this out. Whereas I think that one of the key mantras that we practice at RHEI has been, really quick failures and pivoting, really understanding things. And I think in this day and age, it's even more important because now it's almost with technology and, obviously there are generative solutions that we have access to us. You're able to build so rapidly, iterate so quickly, and bring things to market. So it's even more important to be able to be that close to the customers and to really understand, how you can pivot and, create, and build solutions that resonate, and solve problems for your customer set.
And I'm curious too, because you mentioned that initially you started as the SaaS company and then you moved into this agentic model with Made, right? How quickly after starting the business did you guys realize you had to shift into that model? Because it sounds like you were coming out at the time when AI was becoming more popular as well. So it might have been pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we basically operated, we're more of an advertising business where we were generating, a ton of views through all the engagements that we created alongside our content, because we obviously work with, thousands of content creators and IP owners, billions of monthly views. And all of those, we serve ads against that programming, right? So, and we share in the revenues, the advertising revenues with our customers. So the how, in terms of like, what's the value that you bring into the customer? How do you actually solve their problem? That has changed, because you go from, yes, I can actually provide you a toolkit, optimize your content, increase the value of your content through advertising, enhance your IP through other mediums like interactive. But at the same time, what we saw was an opportunity to be able to build fandom and really create these personalized audience first experiences that was never before possible. Like, you think about it, in the old days, you would be a media company, content creator, you would create a channel, you would slap all the content, online, and you would actually expect for audiences to find it and consume it. Whereas now you really need to kind of think about what the audience wants and what the audience wants to consume. You want to have a clear value prop for every channel that you're programming. So whether if you're like a young Gen Z, the fan of like country music that it lives in the US and Midwest and is going through a breakup and wants to watch like a sad country channel, is going to be very different than, hey, I've got a young family, I live in New York and I hang out with my friends on the weekend and I'm into rock music. So programming strategies are catered to audiences, and which is something that when you're looking at the old tech wasn't able to solve for that. You could have taken a channel, optimized in every way possible, but you couldn't have iterated so many different variations of that same channel for different audiences and the programming that really spoke to those and resonated with those audiences. So I think, for us, 3 years ago, we saw an opportunity to say, look, generative AI is here, and we can actually now build far more personalized, scalable solutions for our customers, and to be able to kind of really help them build fandom at that end. So we made this pivot, and it took us, and believe me, you need new resources. It's a complete pivot for the business in terms of, but it also enhances your TAM significantly, because we went from having, a few million customers as our TAM to now having 380 million people that we can actually look at our total addressable market, right? Because you can now cater to even smaller clients in the long tail that we wouldn't have prioritized servicing.
That's really exciting. This is cool too because I think something that I didn't catch when you first explained the company and what you guys were doing is you're not just creating the content, but you're specifically helping us to understand like how to market to individuals, like what that looks like. So it sounds like there's a lot more that's going into it, and it's almost this full business solution in a sense, which is exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because I would actually say the old era was business suite, but it was a toolkit and a number of services. Whereas now we have built such a strong flywheel, and what I love about it is that it basically addresses, like, if you think about content creators and artists, like 62 to 70% of them feel some level of burnout, right? Because they are wearing multiple hats, right? They have to be so many different things. And not a single content creator artist, signs up to be 7 different things, use 8 different platforms, right? So to be able to actually have this creative dream team where you can actually kind of really delegate, collaborate with, like, whether if it's like you want to actually think about your creative direction, to brainstorm, to come up with the best ideas, whether if it's about editing content. A lot of content creators are relevant on one platform. You may be just relevant on YouTube, and you completely ignore, TikTok, IG, whatever else, because it's just too much, right? Or you make it on TikTok, but it's very hard for you to transfer that success to IG or YouTube or other platforms. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to say, hey, from the point of collaboration and brainstorm, where you could come up with, like, work with Milo, our creative director, to come up with that best idea, to like the packaging of that. You can take that piece of content and you can place it on every platform, automatically, intelligently edited, create the vertical content, create your promo kit, basically make every asset like a global campaign without having to go through that burden. Or if you think about distribution, where are you going to distribute your content? You work with Leela, it tells you where to distribute it, how to distribute it. It helps you with all the rights management solutions. These were all subset of services that we were providing that were not nearly as scalable and as effective previously. Whereas now, because of the fact that, and we were one of the very few companies, and I think when we talk about AI, and the importance of, like, what is, like, one of the key modes for the company is basically the fact that we build one of the largest data sets in the world. We basically have accumulated more than 8 petabytes of data licensed directly from the content creators, and that has allowed us to truly create a personalized experience, which is what not you get when you're actually dealing with, using a lot of different foundational models, right? I always say garbage in, garbage out. You use a foundational model that has trained on public data that is scraped illegally. What you end up doing is you're actually getting another average outcome, because you and every other creator in that vertical, or musician in that vertical, or any creative, is going to basically put a prompt, get a result. It's not personalized towards what you do and what your audience is interested in. It doesn't speak to your voice, your brand identity. What we wanted to do is we wanted to truly create a personalized experience while protecting the human signal when it comes to creativity.
Awesome. That's very exciting. I'm curious as well because you talk about this pivot, right? So as you pivoted into this model, into this dynamic, tell me a little bit about what that looked like operationally, structurally, strategically, like what had to change, the challenges that you went through to be able to make that pivot into this model.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs, it's a tough decision, right? Because you're comfortable, you're making a few $100 million. The company's got massive scale, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, let me actually look at now disrupting myself and doing something differently. But I think that if you really understand your sector, if you understand your customer, if you understand the growth potential that comes with it, I think a lot of founders and entrepreneurs that you obviously speak with, we're not like, we're a different breed. You like taking risk, at least the strong founders, when you see an opportunity, like a pivot speaks to expansion to a new area where you can actually really cater to a much larger audience, and also deliver much greater value. And I think when you have that intersection of, like, I can drive greater value, I can tap into a stronger TAM, and I can have greater focus, it just comes with, it's very clear that you have to then come up with a plan. And I think a big part of that is you also want to make sure that you are aligned with your team, meaning that, as you actually are speaking to this new vision of, like, how you're going to go about building new tools, building new solutions, you need to make sure that your team's buy-in and understanding is there, that you're all in the same boat. And many times you also have to change your team members. Like one of the things that we had to do was really, I think over the last 3 years, we have changed the team significantly across obviously R&D leadership, every member of R&D, like across different departments, to sales, really looking at how we do sales, what are the members that are relevant to this era of sales, to marketing, like understanding what digital marketing looks like in this day and age. And I think what is also fascinating, which is one of the things that we focused on, about 3 years ago, was to build an operating system for the business. Because as much as you can actually build and create for your customers, we also have a build made for teams, which is basically our internal operating system for conducting what we do. So if you're looking at sales, we build the OS, we build our knowledge base, we train obviously, our internal, obviously solutions as it relates to made for teams, understanding obviously our product, our solutions, our customer set, so that when you do sales, you can actually leverage a sales agent that can enhance the human output quite significantly. Because then, not one, you learn more about the customer's pain points, you can speak to the customer more strategically, and you're truly solving a problem for them. So it goes back from like you taking the same sales pitch, getting it in front of every person, to actually solving a problem by getting to know that customer far better, deeper, and delivering a solution that speaks to them. And we did that across all the core functions. So it was also an opportunity for us to say, hey, this is also, let's just try to do things in a new way that would allow us to have far greater scale and output for the business.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you, so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm curious too, because something that you shared where, as you guys were making the transition, there was a lot of people that could stay, but there's also a lot of people that left. So when you look at making that pivot, making that transition, how do you guys figure out which individuals are going to be able to make that transition? Can, understand the new market, understand the niche, understand the sales, understand the R&D, versus the ones that you can see it's like they're just going to be stuck in kind of the old ways. This isn't going to work.
Yeah, it's a great point, because it's if I look at our business, the kind of that we pivoted from, we were a media tech business, so we had functionalities and expertise that came from specifically very much so hardcore focus on media, and we also had tech expertise, but the org wasn't a tech org. So it was a transition of when starting with at the leadership level, in knowing which leaders are the right fit for the roles and which leaders are not. And then, the right leaders would also know that about their team members, right? And then the other part of it is proactive, part of it is reactive. Because as you make this shift, there are people that understand the shift, understand the new vision, and they want to continue with you. And there are people that that are not the right fit, and you have to part ways with them, because it's about also servicing their goals and their visions. It's like a win-win. You want to make sure the company is winning, but you also want to make sure that the individual is going to win in the role, right? And we always look at that as, is this person the right fit? Can they actually truly flourish in this role? Or would they deal with certain limitations? Because you don't want to also set them up for failure. You want to set up every person for success, and you want to give them all the tools and solutions to really truly reach their maximum potential. So, and I think so it's a bit of like you deciding on who are the right team members at the leadership, and then every department looks at it similarly. And then folks that are just like also not open to change, because maybe change is not easy for everyone. So that was like, the part is understanding, getting the buy-in, clearly communicating the new vision, understanding, your leadership team, and really starting with that, layer. And for us, it was a big investment in R&D, and really sunsetting units that were no longer relevant. Like we had services units that were no longer in a pure tech world that we had to sunset, even though they were generating revenue. But for us, It was just about, capital allocation and the focus of that capital that gets allocated to building a very strong flywheel.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm curious as well because as you start to communicate this to the rest of the employees, because like I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. We're thinking about the company, where the company is going, all these different dynamics. But I also understand, like on the receiving level, sometimes from employees, they don't see it that way or understand it that way. So even the individuals that fit in the model and are excited to be in the new model might have some fears or uncertainties. How do you communicate it with the team to ensure that they understand where it's going and there's some safety there for those who are inspired to move forward?
Yeah, I think the core piece of that is communication. We basically went from having offsites once a quarter to having offsites every other month. Because when you go through extreme pivots, you can't just be here, right? It needs to be communicated, and it needs to be communicated multiple times. Because you may say the first time, and the person on the receiving end may hear it and interpret it differently. So communication is really key, and also assuring that you sit with the actual, different team leaders, and you say, now you tell me what your views are. So it's a very collaborative exercise to make sure that, everyone's input has taken into consideration, at least the team members that you want to obviously continue with, with respect to that pivot. And it's also about, more frequent connections to make sure that, you're really, everyone is on the same page, more town halls, more, offsites. And also, like, it allows you to build even a stronger culture. So when I look at, us as an org, this really allowed, like, the leadership, the managers, the teams to become closer to each other, because we had to meet more frequently. We had to learn more about each other. So that was you can also see this as a great opportunity to get to know the team members and their vision and their understanding better.
That's really inspiring. And it sounds like you've been very intentional with how you choose your leaders and, what that looks like because you're asking them to show up in a bit of a different way, right? And so tell me a little bit about your process in ensuring you guys are getting the perfect team leader for each department division.
I mean, I have to say I've been very lucky because my team, they have a very strong tenure. The ones obviously that we've been collaborating with, our Chief Product Officer, Louis Ball, him and I, we've been working together for a very long time. And it's interesting because we work together on so many different departments. Lewis's background is on technology, and he runs product. So it's incredible because he understands the sector and the company so well, right? And what I have learned over the years is, a lot of times you actually look at someone's CV, you look at their background, and you try to actually kind of like really kind of put people in these like very small siloed roles that are maybe doesn't allow them to perhaps grow as much. And I think I did that maybe really for a very short period of time. And then I realized, for you to really truly get every individual to flourish, you really need to give them the opportunity to show what they're capable of. And when you see that, you're able to actually put the right people in the right roles and get those roles to be a bit more challenged because you're bringing new thinking and thought leadership to the roles. So I have to say, like, with product and engineering, I've never been happier in the history of the company under Lewis's leadership on that end. Or, same thing goes with, other functions, right? When we're looking at marketing, when we're looking at sales, partnerships. So again, I've been very fortunate to have really this long tenure with a lot of members of the leadership team. And we have pivoted people in different roles that based on, what they're passionate about, what their understanding of the industry and the clients. And equally, we looked at opportunities where we've onboarded new team members to complement, obviously, the expertise of the team, and to be able to make sure that they fully are properly integrated culturally with, in a larger org that still acts like very much so like a startup.
That's really inspiring. I'm curious too, because something that you said as well in there was that even the individuals that you have had there for a while, sometimes you're pivoting them in their roles based off what they're inspired by, what they're loving to do. How do you guys identify that? Like, when do you start to identify the gap, and where do you and how do you identify, like, let's put them in this role because this is going to suit them significantly better?
It's actually much easier than you think because usually what happens, people take on more roles. Like you may be in a certain role in operations that is specifically to a department. And then you see that individual taking on more, collaborating with others more, showing a ton of accountability as far as like how they deliver, how quickly they deliver, how they actually follow up with the correct stakeholders. For example, our VP of RevOps, he's a great example of that, where he's just looking at revenue operations across the org. It didn't start like that, but he's someone that is so accountable, so incredibly obviously responsible, and he was very much so willing on taking on more responsibility. And I think that is for the manager to see that, to give them that opportunity. But people that are capable usually want to take on more, and they always deliver on what they're taking on. So you can actually give them more responsibility. You can move them around because they show that capacity in terms of their delivery and outputs. Whereas, like, folks that are not performing, you also have individuals that are maybe in the wrong role. Like you look at onboarding someone, it could be someone that is great in, you onboarded them for a specific marketing role. And maybe it's just, a niche within marketing that they were always in simply because of their experiences. And I think just like learning, interacting with them, understanding and identifying, their strengths, you can actually pivot and position them in roles that are more suited to them. So it's more so looking at individuals holistically and their experiences holistically and identifying the strengths so you can pivot them in the roles that they can truly shine in.
I love that, and I think a key thing that you shared in there is, you mentioned it was easy, but it also sounds like it's easy because 'cause you're paying attention.
Dude, no, 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 very
Yeah,
good point. That's a
you're
great catch.
really
Yeah, that's
paying attention. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, we try our best. I mean, I think that as the orgs they get bigger, it becomes more challenging. And I think
Yeah.
it's a two-sided street. Like, you want to make sure that the individual is willing and wanting to learn and has that level of curiosity. Because for you to go from a particular role to a different role, and for us to do that pivot correctly, you have to be a curious human being, and that curiosity to me is like the most important characteristic in an individual. Because if you're curious, I mean, like right now, it's a testament of like the time that we're living in. You can benefit and leverage like all the tools that are available to you to be able to elevate your output, to be able to do things more strategically, or you can use them to do exactly what you were doing a year ago. And I think if you're in the first camp where you're trying to challenge yourself, to push the envelope, to push the boundaries, to have far better output, far greater scale, learn new things. I mean, you could just be in a sales function and learn everything about marketing because all the information is available. You can actually kind of, spend weekends, like, after work, like completely like within, a couple of months, master a new sector and understand it fully if you're willing and curious, right? And I think that this year and last year there were examples of years where you're going to actually have folks that are going to take on more and be 10x 100x more efficient, and you're going to have folks that are going to become, unfortunately, less and less relevant to any org. Because if you're not challenging yourself to leverage these tools to be more strategic, it means that your job is going to be replaced with AI. And I always tell my team, we are going to give you everything. We're going to try to invest in you as much as possible. I want you to push yourself like never before. These are the years that are going to define your future if you really want to have a very, very strong future ahead.
Yeah. Well, what I love about what you're sharing too is even that dynamic of, the individuals who study and who learn outside of the office environment is those are the people who they're genuinely inspired by what they're doing. It's that like curiosity that you said. And it's different. It shows up differently in a workplace environment than trying to, it's almost like we have to bribe with, bonuses and all these different dynamics where you're talking about real inspiration and real drive that comes from within that you don't have to have any of those external sort of rewarding factors for. So tell me a little bit about how you guys are working to build that culture because that's a special culture to have.
For sure. I mean, we kind of about 3 years ago, we made this pivot, and it was again a lot of communication, interaction, understanding, and getting feedback from people and listening to them, and then try to really be as collaborative as possible. And you're absolutely right. You can't bribe people to be curious. And I think that this is a time where when you're thinking about alignment of personal interests and passion points and corporate values, those two things are going hand in hand. So if you're not able to find that curiosity within, because simply what you're doing is not what you're passionate about, it's hard to apply that. But if you're really passionate about what you do, and if you're passionate about a sector that you're operating in, it's very easy to find it. And you can easily tell this because, if someone is checking out at 5 p.m. every day, means, most likely they're not like really, and I'm not saying like, people have different responsibilities at home, but I'm just saying it's an indication. It just means that you're trying to just get the job done. You're not trying to grow. You're not trying to learn. I vibe code every weekend. I personally have learned so much, in the last few years. As far as every day is an opportunity to learn something new. Every day is an opportunity to learn more about things that you're doing right, things that you're not doing right, and learn about all the other players in your industry at the length and depth that previously wasn't possible. What are they doing right? What can you learn from them? Right? It used to be that you would just do a bit of research, spend a few hours, get some surface level data. And now we can go so deep in the knowledge that you can gain on every player in the industry, on every function in the industry. You can, read research papers all the way through sales methodologies to understand how you should be doing things differently within your org, right? And you don't have to be the most senior member of the team. You can actually be a junior and do this and show your value more than ever before, which is so fascinating.
That's really cool. I think, you're sharing, this is one of my favorite things about when AI came out. I remember telling my husband, I was like, this is like the best research assistant I've ever had. I was like, I'm having so much fun with it. But it's that dynamic of the learning and the growth and how do we utilize these tools to enhance what we're doing and enhance what we understand, as opposed to assuming it's just going to take it over.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, I love it because personally speaking, I love medicine. So I'm trying to learn about every organ in the body, the heart, the liver, the kidney, all of it.
I know, I know. My sister constantly tells me ChatGPT is not a doctor, and I'm like, and I still like to learn. And I
But
found
my
mine going to my
health,
doctor.
jam like that.
And
Yeah. I got a project plan. No, it's just really good. It's quite amazing.
oh, that's awesome. I'm curious too. So I'm a little bit more about the made for teams dynamic because was that something that you created in response to something you needed internally? Were you creating it externally for consumers and decided let's utilize this internally? Which one came first for you?
Oh my goodness, such a good question. I don't know. So I would say when we build Made, it was certainly obviously with the very focused intentional of building a very strong flywheel and to be able to actually kind of go from this usage-based to outcome-based model where you go from SaaS, all usage-based, and obviously looking at now the agentic models that are all outcome-based and to really drive results. And as we talked about, to really address the burnout. And then when it came to that level of thinking, we thought, well, why can't we just build agents internally? I think it was a lot of frustration with timelines because you're an entrepreneur, with leadership, we move very fast, and a lot of times, our speed is not the speed of everyone. So we felt that why don't we actually try to elevate the output, elevate the scale, elevate the capabilities of team members so we can actually kind of as an org, really have shorter scrums, shorter cycles when it comes to delivery with sales, with marketing, with R&D. And that was really the beginning of thinking about made for teams. And we started with the sales function because obviously it's always the biggest org. It's the largest OpEx. So you look at your org and you think about outputs, you think about OpEx. And we felt that how do we actually kind of do sales differently? Because, sales, as far as, and we're a very savvy org. We're very much so data first. We do a ton of segmentation on customers and understanding customers, and we have build our own CRM. So it wasn't anything about the basic blocks. It was just more so, how do you actually deliver value to customers, and how do you know the customers at a deeper level? And we, obviously are in a sector where our customers are all online. They're posting content, they're telling us what they're passionate about, what they're interested in. So it was just more so about, how do we actually deliver greater value to our customers when it comes to solving problems for them. So it was really, that was how we wanted to kind of solve a problem of a scale, and making our, obviously, team members more strategic, more intelligent, and with greater output. And then there were functions like marketing, where we know that, with marketing, whether if you're trying to do better targeting, optimization for digital ad spend, many platforms offer great tools, but you can actually optimize your campaigns more strategically. Or if you're thinking about organic marketing, how can you actually create, digital ads, at least like the first iteration of those ads, then you can then modify and make it far more intelligent, with your tools. The same way that we actually have Remy as our content producer for our partners, or Milo creating thumbnails. It was just the same idea of like, how can we actually do marketing more strategically? How do you make it so if someone's coming and, A/B testing, looking at different, sites, all of that has been done for many, many, many years. But how do you do that even at a much deeper, more customized way for our clientele, so the message really resonates with you? And we applied that obviously across all the core functions. And what I'm excited about next, what we're actually tackling, is like finance and accounting agents, which is like, yeah, within the org is probably smaller teams, but they also deserve to be supported, and to be able to actually, feel further empowered in terms of like the tools that are available to them.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section, and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. That's exciting. That'll be really fun too, because I know that a lot of people are getting really creative with how they're pumping out financial reports and or putting financial reports in and understanding some minute details maybe they didn't notice before, just to sort of shift maybe revenue or costs. And it's been really cool what it can do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm curious too. So when you think about your day to day at Ray now, what does that look like personally for you? I'm curious what lights you up most about what you get to do every day.
I mean, I love two things the most. One is product and engineering, like, really kind of, I think, spending time understanding what is working, what is not working, talking to customers, understanding about their experience. So you can actually build something that really resonates with, obviously, your customers. To me, this is like really, really fascinating, because you want to, like, I'm obsessed with making sure that Made is really that ultimate creative OS. And I enjoy it so much. I enjoy interacting with the team members there. And then the other part is sales. I absolutely love sales. And when it comes to strategic sales, whether if you're doing platform partnerships, media partnerships, even with larger content creators, how do you actually kind of really look at identifying the synergies at a much deeper level, which is what we just talked about. Like, you can actually truly, truly do a deeper dive in understanding how you can unlock synergies like never before. So I definitely spend a lot of time there. And of course, marketing is another function that I very much so I'm passionate about, something that we're building at the company, early days with it, both organic and digital. But, look, I enjoy, I think part of being the CEO, you have to care about the finances, the cash flow, you got to make sure that legal documentation is out, operations, at their backbone, shared services. So I think, but I would say the three passion points are product and sales and marketing. Those are the three that I spend most time kind of working on.
That's awesome. And I'm curious too, when you think about where Ray is going, like what are your current growth goals? Do you have growth goals that are just for the year? Do you go 3 years ahead, 5 years, 10 years?
I would say, when I look at Ray, as we actually are fast tracking to achieve super intelligence, I really truly believe that the two, human units that are going to stay relevant are human, really empathy and creativity. And I really hope that we don't turn humans to prompt engineers, that we really allow humanity to actually explore their creativity. And I really want to make sure that with Ray and what we build with Made, we're able to really help with protecting the human signal and really elevating the human signal rather than just getting humans to become prompt engineers. So I really hope that we can get more humans. Right now, we have 380 million people, creatives, all different types, from content creators and musicians to SMBs, that require some level of creative OS. And I feel that as we look at the next 5-6 years, as we get closer to super intelligence, you're going to have more and more people that are going to want to express their creativity. So I want to see Made in the hands of billions of people.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I'm curious about this too, because I feel like you're tackling something that's a big challenge that we're kind of upcoming and facing is keeping the creativity, keeping the empathy within humans as we sort of transition into this era where we're utilizing AI to a larger degree. So, what do you guys think about? What are you sort of strategizing to ensure that you're not having creators completely lean on raids to rely on them, over rely on them, but making sure that they're still staying, inspired by their own creativity and using that? I know it's kind of a
Yeah,
big
I think
question
this is
too.
like,
Yeah.
it's a great question, but it's
Yeah.
exactly, it speaks to the three pillars of Made. So when I kind of look at the three pillars of Made, the three pillars of Made are personalization, is proactivity, and it being effortless. And the reason why I bring that up is because, one, you want to make sure that you're actually building technology that is very much so personalized to every human taste and every
Mm.
human DNA, because you want to protect that. What makes us humans is the imperfections. What makes us human is the experiences that we've had. What makes us humans is the journey that we've been through to be able to tell storytelling. And I hope that every human doubles down on that. What makes a good storyteller is not about them designing the perfect thumbnail or editing a vertical to a horizontal for TikTok. It's definitely not like reading every single comment, which is practically impossible to be able to actually engage with your community. So we wanted to make sure that protecting the human comes from taking away tasks that should be handled by technology.
Mm.
And but then doing so it's truly personalized, that it speaks to you, because you also don't want to lose creative control in terms of expressing and connecting with your fandom, right? And then the second piece that I am very passionate about is the proactive element. Because if you think about it, as the gap between the human brain and these foundational models grow, it just means that it's going to become harder and harder for humans to leverage the technology, right? Like if I were to give like a first user a very strong foundational model, and I would say, hey, just play with it. You're going to start asking really basic questions. So when you think about the capacity and the capability that the technology have versus the request and the demands of the user and the human, there's a big gap in terms of like your asks and the capabilities of that technology. So we wanted to make the tech proactive, because when you make the tech proactive, the human doesn't have to always think about what's the next right question. You can actually collaborate with, have you thought about this? This is why when you're also using Gemini and ChatGPT, is always like, Gemini is always asking, do you want me to prepare the spreadsheet for you? Do you want me to look into this? Because they want to keep the dialogue, obviously keep the individual engaged, but it's not as proactive as it should be. We have taken that completely to a next level. So if you're actually a creator, you don't actually have to go and talk to Milo to come up with an idea, then go to Remy and think about what are the things that you can do with Remy, then go to Zara and think about all the things that you should be asking Zara. You may not even know what you should be asking a community manager. You may not even know what you should be asking a producer. The producer, a great producer, is going to basically help you and achieve your goals, and you're going to have a very intelligent and dynamic dialogue with it. So proactivity is going to allow to bridge the gap between human intelligence and AI, and obviously soon super intelligent. So for us, this is something that we absolutely are doubling down on. And then lastly, it's just, we talk about it being effortless, right? One of the biggest challenges that we've actually dealt with in the last 2 decades with technology has been, there are technologies that are very capable, too complex. And you're asking humans to master these very complex tools, which is not fair, right? And we wanted it to again, going back to when you're making a technology that is truly personalized and is truly proactive, you also now can make it so it's quite effortless, meaning that, the human can actually interact with the technology in a very effortless way while truly unlocking, obviously, its capabilities.
That's awesome. I think the exciting thing too about, that I love about these like different AI models and is also the data, right? Like we have all these things where we can go and we create our own programs and that's fun, but it's like the data that you have based off the specific niche has a profound impact on how it's going to be practically applicable to our products. And I feel like data has become so much more valuable in today's day and age because we're really learning how to utilize it in such a powerful way.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, I would say like data is probably our biggest moat because data is what helps you with personalization. Data is actually what helps you to make sure that as you're actually building solutions for, a content creator, it resonates with that audience and that it speaks to that DNA, creative DNA. And it was, I would say, like, if you go back 3 years ago, it was all about the magic box. Oh, I'm just gonna write a prompt and some magical output's gonna come out, and we were all blown away with like, wow, how fast, that quickly, which it was magical. But the magic now, as you're looking at now, we're more sophisticated. We all understand obviously how these foundational works, and that private data, the premium data, is going to differentiate you from obviously, just having access to the average output that is available to everyone.
Definitely. And I'm curious too, because something that you said when you were describing like the products and stuff is it seems that they're all integrated together. So it's not just that we're going to this one or the other. Is this something that you guys had thought about in the beginning or something that developed over time where it reminds me of the days where I used to do some creative direction and production and stuff for photography world, right? Where it's like I would be the person who would go out and communicate with everyone and make sure the project works. And it's almost like you have your AI set up like the team, right? Where everyone knows what's going on and everyone's giving input, like your offsite meetings in a sense.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
100%. We definitely, I mean, we kind of, our goal was to really, benefit from agentic orchestration where all the agents are obviously communicating with each other, so to make it and facilitate so the human doesn't have to go to 5 different agents to do 5 different things and figure out how and when. But it's all part of the roadmap because at the end of the day, you're also building. And when you're building tech, you have to prioritize what you really is going to, be the most important thing for the customers, for each agent. What are going to be the hero skills that really resonate with that audience and the customer? So we have like big plans for the product. And I wish there was a magic button we would press and the product would be what we want it to be, but it's also part of the journey. But definitely agentic orchestration is a big part of obviously what our vision has been from the beginning.
And I imagine too, because you love product development, that you're already trying to figure out like the next stage, not just in the current agents, but also in creating new agents. So when you think about the process of how long that actually takes to create each one, what does that look like? How long does it take to create an agent, integrate it with the system?
Yeah, it depends on how complex the agent is, and how many skills the agent has. And as a matter of fact, we actually kind of initially when we started, we felt that maybe just like you have a team and you work with a team and each team member has different roles, it would make sense to have a larger team. And as we're actually listening to customers now, we're realizing customers would like to have even a smaller team. So 8 is too big, 5 may be the right size, which is what we have, but maybe 3 is better. So we're trying to really listen to the customer, and also different customers act very differently. If you're a Mr. Beast with a large team, very different than someone that is just getting started, that maybe is new into leveraging technology. They may want to have like a light version where they have access to 3 agents and it's easy to just manage those 3 agents. So I think you also want to think about the user experience when you think about developing new skills. If they can be incorporated with existing agents, we always would prioritize that, because it's not so much about the dev work required, it's about the customer experience that actually speaks to what are they going to think when they're going to use the platform. Are they going to want to have like more of this on their REMI for packaging, so reframing, editing, repurposing the content, putting the thumbnail? Would this be more of a community management? Is distribution and community management too close to each other, so one agent should manage that, or would that be sitting under two agents? So we ask a lot of those, and as a matter of fact, sometimes we agree with each other, sometimes we don't, but ultimately you got to listen to the customer. So if the customer thinks that it has to be the same agent, we'll keep it there. And we love the fact that we get challenged by our clients, and we listen to them, and we try to make the product better every day.
That's awesome. And I'm curious too, because when you think about like getting those challenges from clients, is what does that look like for you guys? Are you doing customer feedback on a regular basis? Do you kind of focus on only certain particular individuals that you connect with more? Tell me a little bit more about how you get that feedback.
It's a really good question. And I just love this because, you have different types of customers, and you definitely need to actually have your study groups, like, and your design partners need to be quite diverse. And for us, given the fact that, Made is multi-platform, we need to make sure that, you're getting feedback from a YouTuber, you're getting feedback from an IG creator, you're getting feedback from a TikToker, and maybe your IG creator is leveraging content to acquire customers. You could be an incredible artist like Daniel Massona. He's like the next Andy Warhol. He's one of our customers, and he basically leverages video to tell a story about his art, to be able to showcase his art. And with that, you need to really understand what his process is versus, someone else that is actually purely a YouTuber that is on YouTube and is basically their job is just creation. So you're looking at more of an IP-led strategy versus an acquisition-led strategy. What are the actual skills that they each need, and then what is their workflow? Are you just like creating everything on your iPhone and connecting Made to your iPhone and wanting everything to happen for you? Are you shooting it on your camera and integrating it? So they're definitely different type of customers, and also those customers' needs on different platforms are different. But this is why we want Made to actually remove that burden, because you think about it, every single one of these content creators have to think about 4 or 5 different platforms, have to use 8 different tools to just get their content out there, right? And it just eliminates their ability to achieve their full potential. So we always like try to actually have a diverse group that we can listen to, we can hear from, and getting the customer feedback is just the best thing. It's just amazing because they validate things that you built. So that's always a positive compliment to the engineering and the product team. And then they also challenge us a lot. So we love that.
It's very cool. And I think what's been fun about learning about your company, like it's very obviously it's AI based now and it's got all the agents. It's very cool. But it really sounds like at the core of it, even though it's AI based, you are very people centric, right? Like this is all really about the human experience and human evolution and development and empowerment, which is fun because I have a lot of opportunity to talk to people about AI now, obviously, and how they use it in their company. People get so excited about replacing people where you just really seem focused on enhancing people. Like, yes, we'll replace the boring stuff that burns you out, but like we just really want to enhance your experience.
Absolutely. And that's really like the premise of what we're doing. It's part of like obviously our mission and what we're building here.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, because this part of thing I love about business is business also gives us an opportunity to not only express like what we want in the world, but also help give that to others. So when I look at what you're doing for people, you're giving them a voice, you're giving them a platform, you're helping them share their message. What is the message that you're inspired to share with people? What are you doing on the background? Why do you do all of this beyond just the business?
I think for me, it's just about empowering storytelling. Like it's being able to, really help every storyteller tell their story and, and connect with audiences. in ways that they want to share their story. I think it's the most beautiful thing. I think it's that human connection, human storytelling. We learn from it. Cultures are built that way. Education is foundational on that. So I think every core pillar that you look at comes from that human connection, and we want to make it better.
That's awesome. And okay, so if people want to find out more about you, more about the company, where should they go?
If they want to use Made, they go to getmade.ai. I think that's probably where we want to send everyone, because it's a direct access to Made. And obviously, for me, I'm on social media, and my handles are my first name, last name. And I'm very fast and responding to messages on Instagram and LinkedIn, both.
Okay. And I'll make sure to put everything in the show notes just in case anyone didn't catch that. If you found this inspiring, if you want to share it with someone else who you think will be inspired by it, feel free to forward this and yeah, share the message as well. And again, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you sharing everything about your company, about yourself.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.